Hello everybody, this is Frankie. We are broadcasting from the Atlanta Sports Podcast. I am here with Luke Winstel once again. We're going to have a good show today. Thank you for finding us on iTunes or on our website, atlantasportspodcast.com. As always, you can please reach out to us on Twitter or on our website. You can contact us there. We would love to hear from you. So we'll get started with the Braves today. How the top prospects are performing. So Luke, how are they doing right now?
Yeah, we're going to start off with a couple notable prospects. They're both in the Braves' top 10, Colby Allard and Ozzie Albies. With Allard, he pitched 6 innings, allowed 0 runs, and had as many strikeouts as he had more strikeouts than he allowed base runners with 9 strikeouts. Only allowed 4 hits, 2 walks. So Colby, with a great outing, looks to be possibly promoted sometime soon. Another player to highlight, as we mentioned, Ozzie Albies, playing second base for the Mississippi Braves. He went 3 for 5 with a triple, 3 RBIs, and a stolen base. That brings his average up to 332 on the season in Double-A.
So the 40-man roster call-up date is September 1st. What are some prospects we could see?
Well, there's a lot of prospects that we could possibly see. Some players that could be called up, like Aaron Blair and Matt Whistler. They're not technically called prospects anymore, but they were optioned. They've had some time at AAA, so if the Braves think that it might be time to bring them back up, they could. Just because they're going to need some pitchers in their starting rotation. DFA'd Roberto Hernandez and Manny Banuelos. We'll talk about that more in the transaction section next. But some prospects would be like Akil Morris. He was brought up for 24 hours a day or two ago and then sent right back down just because he's on the 40-man roster, and the Braves wanted to make sure that they'd have an extra man in their bullpen. Other guys we could see are Chris Ellis and Rio Ruiz, both playing in Gwinnett. Ellis is a pitcher. He's been pitching well, and if they want some depth, they could add him to the 40-man roster, possibly use him as a long man in the bullpen, give him a start or two. Rio Ruiz is quietly having a very solid year in AAA, hitting in the 270s. So the Braves might give him a shot just to get him a little bit of experience. And last but not least, Ozzie Albies and Dansby Swanson could be called up as a duo, just to kind of bolster the Braves, maybe put some butts in the seats in Turner Field. So those are some guys we could see. There are also others that are not as notable, not as highly touted, but those are some just to give you a fair warning if they do get called up.
And you're looking out with Rio Ruiz, Albies, and Swanson. You're looking at potentially the starting infield for a year from now, 2 years from now. And obviously we have all the pitchers, all the pitching talent we have acquired over the past few years. You mentioned the transactions. What were some of the recent ones?
Well, we'll start with some rehab players. Julio Teheran, the starting pitcher, all-star this year. Shea Simmons, who pitched very well in 2014, missed most of 2015, and so far 2016. He's assigned to Gwinnett. Both of those two have been playing in Gwinnett. Teheran's going to make a rehab start very soon, and Tyler Flowers also rehabbed with the Gwinnett Braves. He's still with them for the time being, but he'll be called up pretty soon. Also, Jason Hurst was called up to the major leagues. In his debut, he pitched 1 inning, but he did give up 1 earned run, so his ERA is 9, but hopefully he'll bring that down. Ryan Weber was also recalled to give the bullpen another depth guy so that they can survive through the next few outings. Like we mentioned earlier, they DFA'd Manny Banuelos, listed as the number 23 prospect for the Braves. He's trying to come back off of injury, but he's really had a tough time. In the 3 levels that he's played at so far this year, he hasn't had an ERA under 5, I believe. So he hasn't been pitching well. And also Roberto Hernandez. He had a decent first start, warranted a second one, but didn't pitch well then, so he got the axe there. The Braves claimed Kyle Kubica from the Rangers. He was part of one of the first trades in the rebuilding process that brought us prospect Ricardo Sanchez from the Angels. Sanchez is still with the Braves, but now Kubica was claimed from the Rangers on waivers. So the Braves did very well with that trade. Kind of shows Capalella won another one. The other prospect we traded in that trade is now cut from the Angels. He's loose. He probably won't get picked up. And they recalled and then optioned Akil Morris, like we mentioned earlier, just because on the 40-man for some bullpen depth. And lastly, Arodys Vizcaíno sent to the GCL Braves for rehab. So several of the guys on the DL are showing progress, starting their rehab assignments. So the Braves are getting back to where getting back some of their players that were hurt.
That's definitely good news. I know, especially with the pitching, the Braves supposedly have plenty of it, but as of right now, they do not have a lot of major league pitching talent. It's nice to know some of it's back on its feet. And also, just to piggyback on what you said about Coppolella winning another trade, some people have really not been happy with all the rebuilding, but you gotta support it now. There's too far to go back. We're on the second stage, as they said when they picked up Matt Kemp. It's the second stage of the rebuilding, and he has been doing a very good job, I think.
Yeah, we're now starting to build back and get that team to win more and more games.
All right, so the Falcons, they had their first preseason game versus the Redskins. They won 23-17. Any takeaways, Luke?
Yeah, I think several players improved their stock. Some looked good, some didn't, and some were in the middle. So we'll kind of highlight and go through that. Guys that improved their stock. If you don't follow the Falcons closely or follow the NFL closely, you probably don't know who these guys are. But J.D. McKissick, a special teamer, had a 102-yard kick return touchdown. Falcons also tweeted a video of him with great kickoff coverage in practice today. So he looks like he's really doing a nice job on special teams. And he may get a spot on the roster just to be a special team specialist. Also, Aldrick Robinson had a 100-plus yard receiving game. Most of those yards came from Matt Schaub on a couple of deep passes. So those two have really made a good case for making the team in the first game. And since those guys improved their stock, we'll talk about one guy that really didn't look very good, and is Matt Ryan going 0 for 4 in that opening series. Just didn't play very well. Hopefully, I'm sure he'll get better, but it's just not good to see him in week 1 looking as bad as he did. Some guys in the middle. The pass rush did a solid job. Vic Beasley got some good pressure on the quarterback. Also did a spin move that I don't think he would have really learned how to do unless the Falcons had brought in Dwight Freeney. So I think that's a little bit of an effect from him. Freeney did not play in the game, but he will probably won't be playing in the preseason, but we'll see him week 1 for sure. And the rookie linebackers and Matt Schaub, alongside the offensive line, looked very good in that first game of the preseason. Just all three of them were solid. Matt Schaub had 179 yards passing, so just very well done by them. Rookie linebackers showcasing a lot of speed. Offensive line looks solid with the addition of Alex Mack. The rookie linebackers did make some mistakes, but they had the speed to recover and make up for those mistakes, and they didn't really get burned a whole lot. They just gave up a little bit of yardage, but not a big chunk of yardage.
And that's what you got to learn. You got to learn how to recover from your mistakes. You got to learn how to fix them on the fly, because even Hall of Famers will make mistakes at some point. So their next game is versus RG3 and the Browns. The starters should see more time. Anything to add about them?
Not really. The Browns, they looked okay in their preseason game versus, I believe, it was the Packers in week 1. But nothing real special with them. A couple guys that nobody's heard of stepping up just because the Browns have such a lack of depth on their team. So they're a very interesting case in terms of depth chart, roster, 53-man. Also with their new coach, they look to be better this year, but I don't think
there's
they will
nowhere
be.
to go but up.
Well, actually, there might be down because they were 3-13 last year and they lost a lot of talent to free agency. But they could be going up. You never know.
And the Falcons did pick up from free agency. They did pick up Alex Mack, the center from the Browns. So it'll be interesting to see as he goes against his former team for the first time. Now the Hawks, their NBA schedules were released. The Hawks played the Celtics, who have Al Horford now. They played them at home on January 13th. And they go to the Boston February 27th, and then have one final matchup at home April 6th. They played the Pacers, which has Jeff Teague now. We just made a trade with them, as you may remember. We go to Indiana November 23rd, and we're home on March 5th, and then we have to go back to Indiana April 12th. We have to get LeBron James and the Cavs. We get them on the road November 8th, at home March 3rd, on the road April 7th, and then we get them back home for a fourth game April 9th. The Hawks, their season starts in November. Hopefully we'll get to talk about them a lot more, but until then. So college football is starting a lot sooner. It starts in exactly 19 days for most teams. It starts September 3rd. Some teams get to start earlier in the week. But we're going to talk about former in-state players from the colleges Georgia, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, and Georgia Tech, who are making their debut in the NFL. Who made their debut Thursday, I guess, is when most preseason games were.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with Georgia, the biggest. They had the most rookies. Leonard Floyd was 9th overall draft pick. He made his debut with the Bears. Jake Gaines, Jordan Jenkins, Keith Marshall, Malcolm Mitchell, and John Theus were the other 5. Those 6 made their NFL debuts. And anything to add?
Not really. It's just Jordan Jenkins looked pretty good in his debut. Malcolm Mitchell, I believe, has
arm injury.
Yeah, an arm injury. And Keith Marshall got a little bit of playing time for the Redskins.
Against the Falcons.
Yeah, against the Falcons. He got to play as a kick returner and a running back. Did just fine.
Georgia State has one player, Will Lutz. He's a place kicker. And then Georgia Southern, Antonio Glover, Derek Keaton, and Antoine Williams. And then Georgia Tech has Jamal Golden, Christopher Milton, and fullback Patrick Skov. So all those players have not been cut yet. They have not officially made the teams. Most of them will probably not make the teams they're on right now, but you never know. Then the 3 players from the in-state that are with the Falcons right now, Philip Wheeler, Arthur Lynch, and Chris Mays are with the Falcons. Again, none of them have made the team yet, but there is a chance.
Yeah, Wheeler's expected to. Arthur Lynch and Chris Mays are long shots, but if Lynch can really show up in a few preseason games and get better in practice, he could be one of the tight ends that makes the roster.
And just as a reminder, we are going to have a college football preview show in a couple of weeks. And then following that show, we're going to release an Atlanta Falcons preview. So stay with us. Remember to check us out in a couple weeks. Thank you for listening to the Atlanta Sports Podcast. Remember to tell your friends, follow us on Twitter at ATL Sportscast. You can find us on Google+. We are also on YouTube as well. Our website is atlantasportspodcast.com, and we will see you next week with another show.